All right, time to talk some football. Johnny Mac is in the house at JF McMullen on Twitter, 97.3 ESPN.com's own Eagles and NFL Insider John McMullen. Covers the league nationally for GetMoreSports.com, longtime NFL Insider. And, of course, every day right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. We are counting down the days to Eagles training camp and the teams chasing the birds. We'll have two more for you today. We'll look at Baltimore and Detroit. We'll get to that in just a minute, but there is some other NFL news to get to today, including a former Eagle is in the top of the news here, Pete Thompson, in an Instagram post containing a photo of a severely beaten woman. LeSean McCoy is accused of domestic violence, child abuse, and animal abuse. The photo allegedly shows a woman who is McCoy's one-time girlfriend with severe facial injuries. The post also alleges McCoy has beaten his dog and child in the past, as well as used performance-enhancing drugs, followed by a McCoy post on Instagram saying the allegations are totally baseless and claiming he has, quote, not had any direct contact with any of his people involved, or he is claiming he has not had any contact with any of these people involved in months. Reports coming from Yahoo that the police are looking into the allegations. In a statement, the Bills said they have spoken to LeSean. They will continue to gather information. So let's turn to Johnny Mac and get his thoughts on, obviously, John, we don't know the real story. We see these posts coming out. McCoy quickly shot them down, but it sounds like LeSean McCoy might be back into some trouble. This isn't the first time.
While you say that, there have been issues in the past. Obviously, the bar fights, the bus trip on the New Jersey Turnpike, but these are amped up charges. I mean, these are charges that will obviously, if they're true, end LeSean McCoy's NFL career, potentially put him in jail. But it's got to be, the due diligence has to be done. It has to be proven. The bottom line is, right now it's a he said, she said type of thing. And you mentioned all the accusations there. They are horrific. But you have to realize LeSean immediately basically came out and denied them. And pretty clearly by saying he hasn't had any contact with these people in months, that's going to be pretty easy to prove one way or another. And if it was sort of just hemming and hawing, I don't think he would have taken that route because it would be so easy to disprove. We just saw with Reuben Foster out in San Francisco, there have been false allegations in the past against high-profile athletes in circumstances like this. So right now, we just don't have enough information. And I know people see that picture. If you saw it, it's horrific. But there is no proof to the allegations at this point.
John, you talk about all the previous incidents, though. Is that why there's plausibility to it? Is that why there's believability to it? Why do you think it is that LeSean McCoy can't stay out of quote-unquote trouble?
Well, he's never been the most mature guy in the world. I'll say that. But again, there's significant differences between getting in a bar fight. Look, I'm not defending that, but it's happened to a lot of people. The issue on the turnpike when he sort of ejected the girl and poured liquor over her, that's even taken it up another notch. But again, it's nothing like this. He has sort of a boisterous personality. I mean, the bottom line is Chip Kelly got rid of him because he didn't think he was a good guy. I'll be honest. And maybe he isn't a good guy. But there's still, to me, there's a leap from being sort of a narcissist or if you want to use the term egomaniac, whatever term you want to use, to these types of charges. Look, as I said, if they're proven to be true, his career is over, and he's got to deal with significant legal ramifications. But And that's why I bring up Reuben Foster. Everybody was ready to run him out of this league on a rail. And the allegations against him were completely fabricated. So it has happened in the past. So you have to be fair about it.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously in today's social media world, someone could just post this up there and try to start making you guilty in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, and from the other side, there's people throwing mud at his ex-girlfriend, who has also had relationships with other players, Michael Vick, Marcus Vick, Floyd Mayweather in the past. There have been issues. So this is one of those things where probably two people that should get away from each other. There's no question about that. And that's not to defend Shady McCoy at all. As I said, if he did this, I mean, he deserves to be put in jail. Certainly doesn't deserve to be playing football. But if he's being accused because someone is angry, maybe because of a breakup, you have to be realistic from that standpoint and at least say that's a possibility, especially when you see, as I said, the statement released immediately claiming he hasn't had contact in months. That should be very, very easy to prove or disprove.
Yeah,
so Shady really boxed himself into a corner if he did this.
Yeah, John, to Mike's point, it does seem like in the social media society, you're guilty until proven innocent instead of the other way around. Is it as simple as if the allegations are true, throw the book at him, and if they're false, throw the book at her? Is it that simple?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there has to be really, obviously, if what Shady did, it turns out to be true, what the allegations are, he has to be punished and punished severely, not only for domestic violence, but for child abuse and animal abuse. And you know, when you look at PEDs, that pales in comparison to stuff like that. But from the other perspective, similar to the Reuben Foster case, if you have an alleged victim lying to the police, yeah, I mean, they should be prosecuted as well.
John McMullen is with us here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. So some pretty graphic photos, by the way. So LeSean McCoy, certainly the accusations of domestic violence, child abuse, he says they're completely false. He says, for the record, the totally baseless and offensive claims made against me today on social media are completely false. Furthermore, I have not had any direct contact with any of the people involved in months. The Bills, again, put out a statement. So we will see what is next here. But do you think that this could impact LeSean McCoy 2018 season?
Oh, sure. I mean, he won't have a 2018 season. And I think it's going to move very, very quickly because, as I said, from his statement, it's going to be easy to prove or disprove. And I think this is going to go quickly. I really do. It's not going to be difficult to see if LeSean McCoy has been involved with these people, whether it's his ex-girlfriend or the people making accusations on Instagram. There's going to be obviously an electronic sort of footprint, and you can check these things out relatively easily in today's world. So, yeah, I mean, he's not going to have a season if he did these things that are accused. If not, obviously, it's going to be easy to prove that as well. And if that's the case, I think you're going to see him be cleared very quickly.
And the Bills and the NFL both are investigating this, according to Pro Football Talk. Quote, the Bills said in a statement, we have spoken to LeSean. We have been in contact with the NFL. We will continue to gather information. We are reviewing the matter. That is NFL spokesman Brian McCarthy. He told PFT, and the information, as you said, should be pretty easy to gather. That's what they're saying. So right now, at this point, the Bills and the NFL are looking into it, and it looks like some problems could be coming for LeSean McCoy, and some graphic problems, too. Those are not just minor accusations. In the pictures, if you've seen them, They are pretty graphic photos of the woman in the photo. Obviously, that will play out. Now, the NFLPA filed a grievance over the NFL's new anthem policy. So, John, we have labor agreements, but not labor peace.
No, and I talked about that in the past. That was a mistake from the NFL standpoint. It was creating a problem that I believe didn't even exist. I thought had essentially gone away. Nobody was really paying attention to it any longer. And all of a sudden they go ahead and do this for whatever reason to appease the president. Some people think it's because of a business standpoint. Whatever, it didn't need to be done, and obviously some of the players are taking it in a different way and aren't happy with being told what to do. And you have sort of this banging of the heads. Ultimately, I think the rule will stand, but I'm sure some people will violate it in an effort to protest whatever they want to protest, and we'll see how the league handles it. And we'll see how the individual clubs handle it because, the Jets, for instance, have claimed they will pay any fines leveled at their players. So I think it's a big mess, and I think it's an unneeded mess for a story that is far bigger than it should be. If you think about it statistically and how many people at the height of this protest were kneeling or doing things like Malcolm Jenkins and putting his fist in the air. Very small number of players. And it would have went away, but the NFL sort of extended it.
John, what do you think about Eric Winstead, the NFLPA president, coming out saying that you have to have the solutions from both sides, and that if it wasn't a unilateral decision that came out, that maybe there wouldn't be this brouhaha? I guess you're in concert with his agreement, and that the union went to the league before filing the grievance to say, let's have discussions on this, and they went ahead anyway, and now they're going to backtrack and have these discussions.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a problem with the players. If you think about, we just talked about Shady McCoy and domestic violence. If you think about the so-called domestic violence policy, the players were very angry over that because it was unilaterally implemented. So when they're not put into the conversations, and I think that's generally anybody in any walk of life, if there's an issue between two sides and one side acts unilaterally, the other side's not happy. But the bottom line is the owners have the power to do so through the collective bargaining agreement, and the NFLPA doesn't have a leg to stand on. Now, in the next CBA, they could negotiate these types of issues if they wanted. But the bottom line is, and I tell this to people all the time, nobody's striking over these ancillary issues. The only thing people strike over is money. That's it. And if you think people are walking away from high-paying jobs because 15 or 20 people want to kneel during the national anthem or do something else, it's just never going to happen.
You think there's a potential for a strike or a lockout on the issues of guaranteed contracts?
Yeah, anything financially. There's always a chance that there can be a strike or a lockout. That's it.
There's been a lot of conversation about that with the NBA. And I know you've said many times the roster sizes, but there was a big debate on this the other day on Golic and Wingo, I think it was, where, I forget what it was on, but it wasn't Golic, but they were saying that it's going to take a high-profile guy to stand up for the rest of the league to say, look, I'm Tom Brady, we need guaranteed contracts, or I'm Aaron Rodgers, and we need, you know what I'm saying? Do you think it will get to that point?
Well, no, it's not going to get to that point. It could. I mean, it's a give and take. We look at Kirk Cousins, who had this extraordinary leverage, but you saw what he did to get it. He went through the entire process, being tagged again and again to the point it was not financially feasible, and he got a fully guaranteed deal. Very rarely do quarterbacks who throw for 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns every year hit the open market, and that never happens. So it's very hard to get the kind of leverage a player like Kirk Cousins had. So that's not going to be consistent. And then the part is, you could essentially, I don't think most people know this, essentially first-round picks, the first 4 years of their deals are completely guaranteed. So you can go about it in two different ways. If you want fully guaranteed contracts, you could probably get that accomplished, but they're only going to be 1 or 2 year deals. And they're not going to be the 5-year deals with the huge signing bonuses up front. So it's going to be the same number. It's just sort of the financial speak. Are you going to get $60 million up front over 5 years, and then the team has control, can move on probably by the 3rd or 4th year? Or are you going to sign a 1-year deal for significant money or a 2-year deal for significant guaranteed money? I'd rather have the $60 million if it's truly guaranteed. But and players are smart enough to understand that.
John, we started off talking about LeSean McCoy. He's not the only person around the league that's in trouble. How about this story about the Cardinals GM getting pulled over and then telling the police that he's the director of security to try and hide his title of what he actually is?
Yeah, that's embarrassing, and you have to keep an eye on that, because that's the kind of thing that is so embarrassing that could cost him his job. There's no question about that. And look, I mean, that's obviously a guy who's embarrassed and desperate and not thinking correctly, Steve Kime, because obviously they're going to figure out who he is, and he's not the director of team security. So, look, I mean, that's a horrible situation. He made a serious mistake, and he made it worse by trying to hide what his actual job title was from the police.
We talked to you briefly yesterday about the Panthers and their new ownership, and I see that David Tepper wants to create this new open atmosphere, but I also saw an article, or I saw a post somewhere that says he has to leave the statue of Richardson out there. He's contractually obligated to leave the statue of the former guy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously people want to tear it down because of the allegations. Well, I really don't like to take a side. I mean, if you think about it locally, if you think about Joe Paterno and Penn State, and look, this is what I tell everyone. If you're going to practice hero worship, you're going to be disappointed. So if you're going to make a statue of a human being and expect that human being to be a perfect one, ultimately, at some point, you're going to be disappointed. So I'll just say that.
All right, Johnny Mac, the training camp, July 25th for the Eagles. We will take a look at the two teams tomorrow, Baltimore and Detroit, as the teams chasing the Eagles. There was a lot of NFL news today, but that's why we have the extra day. So if there is a lot of news, we will be able to move it back. So tomorrow we'll look at the Ravens and the Lions, two more teams chasing the Eagles. What's Detroit have?
A new radio announcer. They've got
my man Jimmy Branstadter's out of there.
That is correct. Being replaced by
31 years, I think.
He's been on the show many times. Well, not many. They've only played the Lions a handful of times, but most of the times the Eagles played the Lions. We talked. He does the Michigan games too, I think.
They're replacing him with Lomas Brown. I mean, that's a pretty big, literally, guy to replace him.
Johnny Mac at JF McMullen on Twitter. Don't forget, read him at getmoresports.com for the NFL and right here on the Sports Bash. Thank you, pal.
Hey, thanks, guys.